The 7-2 Toronto Rush travel here to Washington, D.C. to take on the 6-3 D.C. Breeze in a 1-2 matchup in the East Division. The winner of this game will hold the tiebreaker and have a very good chance to take the number 1 seed in the East playoffs. Coming up next from Hotchkiss Stadium, the Rush take on the Breeze. Stay tuned. This is AUDL Extra. Hi, everybody, and welcome to UltiWorld's coverage of AUDL Extra. Very excited to have you with us here today as the Toronto Rush take on the DC Breeze. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, joined by Greg Esser, and we've got a great one on our hands, Greg, as these two top teams in the East battle in a critical game here as we head towards the postseason in just a few weeks.
You are spot on, Charlie. This is a very exciting game. These teams have split games so far this year. Toronto taking one up in Toronto the last time they met in D.C. The Breeze came out on top. And this one's the tiebreaker, the rubber match for the year, and it has a very good chance to affect playoff seeding as well as who hosts those playoff games. And for the Breeze particularly, home field been very valuable in this young year. 5-0 on the year, the Breeze are at home, 1-3 on the road.
Yeah, it's been a story between these two teams about who's played at home. Over the last 2 seasons, there's only been one road victory, and that was Toronto here in D.C., Game 1 of last season between the two teams. And that was a double overtime victory for Toronto, 25-24. But since then, it's been all home team, including this year. The last time they played here down at Hotchkiss Stadium in Gallaudet University, Toronto got smoked by D.C. on the second game of a back-to-back, much like Toronto faces here today.
Yeah, but not to be overlooked, that double overtime game a year ago was also on the back of a 2-game road trip. So we'll see if Toronto's found the right pieces today. They did play a comfortable game, I'll say, in Philadelphia last night. They ran up the score to 35 and won comfortably by 7 at the end of that one.
So an easy win yesterday, but it's worth noting, as we get into talking a little bit more about this specific matchup, that Toronto's missing a few key guys. It's a training weekend for Team Canada. We'll be competing at the World Games. So a couple players are out for the Rush for that, as well as a couple of other players also missing just the weekend because they couldn't make the trip down. So Jeff Powell, Andrew Carroll, and Mark Lloyd are going to be at the World Games tryouts, and Adrian Yearwood and Jonathan Martin could not make the trip. Those are all pretty critical players for this Rush team, so they're going to be a little bit shorthanded today, and that's tough, especially when they're playing in 95-degree heat like we have here in a big heat wave day in D.C.
That's right. And of those guys, I think they all stand out. They've all put up fantastic contributions, maybe with the exception of Lloyd a little bit only because he's been active in, I think, 3 games in 2017. But all those other guys, major contributors. And I look to Jeff Powell and say, particularly the role he's played in DC-Toronto matchups has been pivotal. A big defender, a very physical defender. Some fireworks we saw in the playoffs last year between him and several players on the Breeze. And with him out, you hope that the defense can find the spark to start racking up the numbers, 3 blocks like Mario Zlatic had last night in Philadelphia.
And so when you look at this matchup today, DC basically playing with a full roster.
That's right.
They got to be seen as the favorites. What are the keys to the game in what is going to be a scorcher, especially on this turf?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've said it by talking about the weather there a little bit. It's 95 degrees today in D.C. You walk down on the turf, you might think it's 110. It's dark turf. It absorbs that sunlight. It's hot down there. And I think roster management is going to be a critical component of this. It's something Daryl Stanley, the coach of D.C., has talked about constantly. How do you preserve your big guns for late game moments when you want them to cross over and play every point? Rowan McDonald, a player for the Breeze that's consistently played more and more points. He's playing 75% of the points in games. How early do you start crossing Rowan McDonald over to keep his legs till late in the game? Toronto will need to do the same thing. Their numbers at the top of their roster, that universe line, so to speak, a little thinner today than it might be otherwise. How do you preserve those bodies till the end of the game?
Things are underway as with the opening pull. It's the DC Breeze in blue starting on offense, Toronto in white. So mixing up the home colors. The Breeze beginning on offense. As the disc flows through Jeff Wodach in the red zone. Now Lloyd Blake. Blake dishes it off. into the hands of the hyper-productive Tyler Monroe.
Tyler Monroe having a great year so far for the Breeze.
Wodach far side.
The lead scorer, Monroe is.
And he flips it into the end zone, finds Joe Freund playing just one of his first games of the season. And the Breeze on the board here first, 1-0.
Number 33, Joe Freund. And the Breeze are on the scoreboard first. Yes!
It is Joe Freund's third game of the year, fourth game of the year, excuse me. He did the doubleheader road trip last weekend, or one game on the road, one game back in D.C., but finished up a great season at Virginia Tech with taking Virginia Tech Burn to nationals for one of the first times in program history, one of the more recent times, I guess I should say, and he's only a sophomore.
Yeah, an incredible player. He finished on Ultiworld's All-America second team, which honored the top 14 performers of the college season. And, for a team that, playing for a team that did not do a lot of damage at nationals, that's pretty high praise. And I think, as a sophomore, we're going to see a lot more of him. And he's already been a contributor for this Breeze team.
And he was in the starting 7 here today.
Toronto Rush offense, catching the pull, sending it back through Thompson McKnight, their super steady center handler. Deep shot straight away from the Breeze. And
Bloodgood picks it off.
Taken away by the Breeze.
Bloodgood casually padding his block stats for the year. I believe that's number 6 in 2017 for the youngster.
Nate Castine on the sideline, sends it around, now with Cantone. Efficient offense so far from both lines for the Breeze. Castine looking to the end zone, but that throw never going to come back in bounds. Castine lost his balance a little bit on the throw and couldn't keep that one stay in. Tough throw, that same third huck.
Castine also, although he's been on the Breeze roster the entire year, a newer player to today's lineup. He's been injured, some shoulder problems, I believe, earlier in the year, and this is only his second game active.
McKnight to the sideline for Isaiah Massett-Kelly. Now Benjamin Burrell hucks it, hanging, tipped, and knocked away from Steve Armitage. Nice defense on the other side from Bloodgood, his second block of the game. Breeze going back the other direction, and they turn it over as well.
McDonald's an interesting player, a little streaky, and earlier in the year he had a lot of turnovers. His completion percentage was ducking below 90. He's cleaned it up a lot, and so it's not a good signal to see a throw over from him early in this contest.
And a swing pass right on their defending goal line goes awry as Massett-Kelly has no chance to catch up to it, and now the Breeze will have a break chance in the red zone. Looks like Monroe to pick up.
That's Bloodgood, I believe, on the disc.
Right you are. Bloodgood swings it off the line. It's tipped and then caught second effort. Austin Bartenstein finds Castine. Now to the end zone and a layout catch for the score.
And if something's going to win back Roe McDonald's confidence is a play like that. Tracked it real well, got very long and horizontal. Austin Bartenstein couldn't avoid his his offensive teammate catching up to it and making the catch.
Take another look.
Yeah, you might see here that, Roe McDonald really turns it on. Letting the disc get awfully close to the turf, but in control the whole time, extends the full length of his body, reels it in.
So a strong start for the Breeze here. Just over 3 minutes gone here in the first period. And as I said at the start of the broadcast, the DC Breeze, a game back of the Rush. And so a win today would tie the teams up. They would both be 7-3. And of course, the team that wins here will have the tiebreaker, critical tiebreaker for postseason seeding.
And the tiebreaker part of the equation, but also point differential, another indicator for teams that are all knotted up when it comes to playoff time. And right now, even after last night's win in Philadelphia, which padded the Rush's point differential by 8 additional points, the Rush are still behind 7 in that department.
And a whistle will bring that turnover back, and it'll be a 10-yard penalty against DC.
Looked like Brian Marshall intervened on behalf of the referees and said, I got hand, let's bring it back. A little spirited call there out of B. Marsh, as he is affectionately known around the DC community.
Yeah, the integrity rule enacted there. Pick call will send them 10 yards back in the other direction.
Shooting early
down,
and often.
Huck. Hanging. Defense catches up and makes sure it got no chance. Delrico Johnson showing off the wheels.
Second in terms of overall blocks for the season is Delrico Johnson. Gets his 10th of the year. Now he's double digits.
A lot of missed hucks from both teams early in this one. Alan Kolick, the dangerous lefty, finds Johnson on the far side.
There's Markham Schaffner underneath.
Schaffner, always a dangerous deep thrower. He puts one up. Got some room, and he gets it over the head of the defender. David Cranston catches it right on the goal line. Cranston, easy dish for the score, and it's DC 3, Toronto 0.
Yeah, it was beautiful under.
Take a look.
And it's Brian Marshall who gets the goal stat in the end.
Cranston catches and just is patient. Gets the easy score.
2 breaks in a row. The DC Breeze lead the Rush 3.
And that's another break for DC, starting off the game with an offensive hold and then 2 breaks. Looking strong early.
There's Nate Castine preparing to pull for the Breeze. And it's a dangerous spot in this game right now for Toronto. Already down a few key players, now down 2 breaks. Don't want to let the deficit balloon. It's going to be tough to make a comeback in this weather, especially on the second day of a back-to-back. Backhand Huck. This one's perfect, and it drops in, and Cam Harris jumps it into the end zone for the Toronto score.
And so this will be interesting. I kind of mentioned about the roster management. I expect guys like Cam Harris, like Isaiah Masek-Kelly to really have to play a central role to keeping the Toronto Rush in this. And you want to tighten up your lines at this point in the game. You're tightening them up awfully early and hopefully not exhausting those big playmakers. Cam Harris had 4 goals yesterday. Now he's got 1 today.
A perfect break backhand Huck. Easy for Harris.
Nate Castine almost gives up on it a little bit there. It's so good.
So we'd like to thank our charity partner, which is Big Brothers and Big Sisters. And you get your charity partner 50/50 raffle ticket today at the front gate. Again, get your 50/50 raffle ticket for the Big Brothers Big Sisters charity.
Jarrett Marin preparing to pull for Toronto. Swing around now to the far side. Sagging defense from Toronto. Now a high pass. Dangerous and taken away by Toronto. They look to attack early, but Kolick knocks it out of the air, but it's caught. The Rush able to maintain possession as Brian Yue comes running in and making the play. Now Marin near side. Swings it off the line to Mike Jones. Whistle.
And it looks like a Toronto timeout was called.
And so Toronto will opt to use one of their first timeouts here in the first half. 2 timeouts per half.
They get a turnover and they're trying to make it count, get one of those breaks back.
Under 6 minutes to go here in the first quarter, and indeed, if you're new to the AUDL, note that you can make substitutions during timeouts. So this gives Toronto an opportunity to get some of their offensive players back out there to try to put this break into the end zone.
And if I'm watching that Toronto line and I saw the series of events we watched, it was a great, well-defended disc that got possession to begin with, but then the immediate attempt at a huck that Kolek Deed out of almost a marking position. You're thinking these guys are not acting chilly out there. They're not taking their time. Let's regroup with a timeout, but also get some of the offensive line studs out there. As I said, kind of make it count, make an early break, and then neutralize the 2 breaks the Breeze earned early.
Yeah, I really like the early timeout. I think getting the breaks early in this game and staying close is going to be really important because really, I think if you're the coach of Toronto, you're in the huddle saying, let's just hang around and put ourselves in a position to win this game in the fourth quarter. Because you're tired, you've had a long trip from Toronto, you had to play yesterday in Philly, in a very high-scoring game that meant a lot of run for everybody. And so now you just try to get one back and stay close here in this first quarter.
Yeah.
Cam Harris swings. Then nice layout D.
Cranston gets a block.
And Cranston immediately comes back underneath, sends the pass ahead. And into the end zone for Del Rico Johnson, and DC nullifies the Toronto timeout with a quick score.
So we're seeing both teams a little bit when they're on the far side of the field throwing across. The wind, while there's not much of it, is just popping up the disc a little bit and creating a window for the defense to register blocks and register breaks.
We've seen definitely some swing passes have a problem, and a nice lift backhand for Johnson.
And going into that Castine throw, there was a second hand that doesn't ultimately release the disc, but stabilizes the disc on the way up as he, lofts that high release backhand. I wonder if that's from partner throwing sessions with Rowan McDonald, a big advocate of the two-handed throw.
If you haven't checked it out, make sure to go watch Rowan McDonald's YouTube series of trick throws. And some that wouldn't really qualify as a trick throw. The one we just saw, that's a throw you can use in a game, and we saw it right there, why it's useful.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I had the great opportunity to actually sit down with Rowan this week on the DC Breeze podcast, Hot Air, and he gave me some tips and some of his platitudes about throwing with two hands.
McKnight.
Getting high in the stall count, McKnight, but very comfortable in that center handler role.
Now a whistle as a pick is called, and that should be a turnover. But no, because the pick call happened before the throw, so it will send it back 10 yards. No continuation there.
So that's another key differentiator between USAU play and AUDL play for Ultimate, is that as soon as a whistle goes, wherever the disc was when that whistle was blown is where the disc returns to, regardless of turnovers or a throwaway or anything like that.
Good reset pressure from DC. Lots of room on the near side, and McKnight comes underneath. Now a huck to the end zone, too far. DC will get another break opportunity. 4 minutes to go here in the first quarter.
Yeah, I mentioned McKnight, comfortable in that central handler role. Here's a guy with 320 completions on the year with only 12 throwaways. It's good for a 96% completion percentage. And that's a real good one. If you can keep that north of 95, you are a very sure set of hands to be contributing to your Ultimate team.
It's been interesting determining kind of what completion percentage is good in Ultimate. It's not been so long that the stats have been kept on that number. And with the advent of the AUDL, we started to get more tracking of turnovers and completions. And that's allowed us to determine that, indeed, it is about that 95% number that sort of marks an elite handler.
Yeah, it's interesting. Handlers and all throwers are kind of asked to do different things. Here you see Rowan McDonald going deep again, something he's asked to do often.
And a big layout comes up just short
And his second turnover over of the day. Number 7 for the Breeze, Kevin Moldenhauer, the intended target.
Massac Kelly. He puts one up for Burrell. Good defense, but better offense as Burrell goes up and gets it.
Burrell had 5 assists last night in Philadelphia, but you see him getting a goal here in the early going in today's DC game.
A nice play from Burrell and certainly a trusting throw from Massac Kelly.
Both teams gunning deep early and often.
See this again. Massac Kelly says, we'll take the 50-50, and Burrell holds position well, makes the play.
2 minutes, 56 seconds remaining in the quarter.
And not necessarily maybe the matchup you're looking for with Chuck Cantone there. Just a real great piece of athleticism to get up for it, but also use of the body by Burrell to beat such an elite defender. But kind of to finish my point, I think 95%, you're right, and I said the same thing. That's the mark of an elite thrower. It is interesting to consider what each thrower is being asked to do with the disc. If it's someone's expected to throw the longer, harder, less likely to be completed throws, maybe you can drop off a few. Ooh, and a throwaway by Kolick on a scuba attempt to Lloyd Blake.
So another chance for Toronto to get one back. And it's snatched away by Kolick.
Kolick makes up for it.
And he's getting on his horse. Now turns off the cut, comes back underneath. A lot of Breeze players behind the disc.
If you're asked to make some of the shorter throws, though, certainly as McKnight is, as Nathan Pryor is on DC, then you really want to make sure you're north of 95%, 96. And Nathan Pryor actually 138 throws, 139 throws as he has one on this point, yet to have a completion in this yet to have an incompletion in the AUDL season.
High release backhand sets up another goal, and it's Joe Freund getting on the board.
The second goal of the game.
That's his second score of the game, 5-2 DC.
Joe Freund really showing his value to this Breeze team, even in only his 4th game, already earning the trust. Not a lot of separation here, but still able to find him in the end zone for what he makes look like an easy score.
Two minutes, 13 seconds left in the quarter.
That was a really important point for the Rush. They had a possession only 15 yards out, unable to convert. Alan Kolick made the turnover but earned it back. And then when the Breeze marched down and scored and the scoreboard looks 5-2 instead of 4-3, Rush have to be thinking, let's try to get 1 or 2 here and make this first quarter, put this first quarter behind them, see if they can't get a more lopsided score in the second quarter.
Yeah, they've had a couple good chances. They took the timeout, couldn't convert the break, had another chance on the last point. And again, the Breeze getting it back and then going on a fast break to put the score in. Connor Armstrong dishes to Harris. Harris ahead, big layout. They continue up the line. Burrell, one of the newcomers to this Rush team, played very well, as have most of their rookies.
After all of his assists yesterday, though, Burrell couldn't find a cutter in the end zone on that one. And the second time out of the half for the Rush, they're exhausted, and we haven't even gotten into the second quarter.
Yeah, their O-line forced to take a timeout here and just collect their breath. And as we talked about, it's 95 degrees, but it's really hot down on the turf because not only is it turf generally just hotter, but this is a little bit older turf, so the black rubber pellets that give it some cushion are really showing through, and that just absorbs the heat. I touched my hand down there before the game just to see how hot it was.
Fried an egg.
Yeah. I mean, uncomfortable to have your skin touching the turf. And I think the players' feet get very, very hot, and it's just tough sledding out there right now.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I think all these players wish that they were sledding on a hot day like this.
Now I got my man Dylan here, and I can't throw a Frisbee. But Dylan claims he can.
So we do have the on-the-field entertainment that takes place between quarters, but also during timeouts. And the noteworthy thing, and the reason I bring that up, is last week during the third quarter, the Breeze had a 5K winner. If you can hit a mannequin 50 yards out from the end zone line, they give a lucky fan who's drawn at random $5,000. And last week we saw it happen. I know you were waiting for it to happen when you knew what the Breeze were doing.
Talking about it last time, I said I can't wait to see when it happens. Unfortunately, I was a week too late. They did it a week before I got here, but maybe they'll do it again today.
They're definitely doing it again. The prize has been reduced since the jackpot was hit, but still $1,000 on the line for a lucky fan.
Still nice money. Toronto coming out of the timeout, working through McKnight. Dished to Massac Kelly. He goes to the end zone, and a nice grab by Steve Armitage as Toronto gets the hold.
Steve Armitage picking up again where he left off yesterday. His first goal of the day today, but he had 7 last night in Philadelphia.
Still a 2-break lead for DC.
And that was a really nice play by Armitage by keeping his defender on his back the whole time, avoiding a layout or a bid attempt from his defender, and just catching it on his fingertips without really losing stride himself or losing focus, anything like that. Real nice piece of work there. So you can see the usual suspects on the field for the rush in these early points. You see a score by Armitage there. You see Burrell trying to find his assists and playing a lot of points. Cam Harris. I am once again interested to see if these guys continue playing as frequently this early in the game because they will be needed late, I can guarantee it.
1 minute remaining in the first quarter.
A brief double team on Jonathan Neely here. And a huge layout. Fantastic play, Isaiah Massac Kelly. Excuse me. That was 71.
Yeah, somebody switched jerseys. Try to figure out who that is in our next break. I believe that's Mario Zlatic, 14. Number looks like a 7. So Zlatic gets the big under D, and now the Rush with a chance to get a break back. They've had 2 chances earlier. Can they cash in? Break backhand, and they do. They drop it into Remy Ojo, and the Toronto gets back within 1 after the great block by Zlatic. Nice play. Take another look here at the score. Just beaten to that backhand side. Ojo gets the goal. So that's a much-needed break for Toronto.
And now with 20 seconds left, the Breeze still up by 1. It would be important to the Breeze to preserve all the hard work they made in the first quarter to try to get that 2-point edge as the game moves into its second stage.
And I like the decision there. Throw a pole, roll it out of bounds, and not allow the Breeze to get any free yardage.
Great idea, great execution of the idea. That disc landed 2 yards inbound and shot out of bounds, forcing Markham Schaffner to run all the way over to the sideline in an attempt to field it, and now Bartonstein to get double-teamed in the middle as the Breeze started off. 20 seconds on the clock.
20 seconds, plenty of time to get a score.
Here's Cranston and Bloodgood working near sideline. Bartonstein.
Back to Bloodgood. Wodach. And a whistle is blown before the throw as the clock went to 0, and it was a foul called, which I believe will put a little time back on the clock.
I think Wodach's going to have about 2 seconds to release it here, but he's going to have a double team on him, and he certainly hasn't been the Breeze's strongest thrower in this early season. Over 10 turnovers and a completion percentage around 91%.
Wodach with it, 2.3 seconds added, and now they are going to maybe reset the clock to 3 seconds. It appears that they... So 3 seconds on the clock, and we will await the whistle.
Got Bloodgood in the backfield, Cranston on the front of the stack. Wodach shoots for Cranston, and it's a turnover.
And that will bring us to the end of the first quarter with DC up 5-4. They cannot cash in.
Not a
with
lot
just
of time
3 seconds left.
Not a lot of time to make a play call there, but a little disappointing, I think. Regardless of the lack of time that was on the clock, I think they really wanted to use Bloodgood in the backfield, make him throw that completion in the end zone, try to get that inside break out of Wodach to Cranston, who's got a guy right on his hip. It's a tough one.
Score at the end of the first quarter, DC Breeze 5, Toronto Rush 4. We'll be back for the start of the second quarter right here on AUDL Extra.
So this piece with Eric is amazing to me. It's right in line with what we think is critical for kids, and that is to know their bodies.
The kids have really gotten into having speakers here that aren't just their teachers.
And I think the clinicians did a fantastic job. All the kids were engaged. None of them were distracted. They seemed to get into it right away.
I just want to reach out to Eric and tell him, thank you for coming and sharing the message that our kids can speak up. Early recognition is critical, and I look forward to doing more things with Eric in the future.
It's been great for us as a staff and for our students to experience the message you guys have, and highly recommend it for any school that has the opportunity.
Welcome back to Hotchkiss Stadium at Gallaudet University, where the DC Breeze have a 5-4 lead over the Toronto Rush. Hey, Greg, what did you see in that first quarter?
Yeah, I saw both teams came out trying to get an early lead. I think both teams thought, hey, if we can just get a little bit to hold on to here, that'll be really valuable as we move into the middle stage of this game. And I saw neither team really able to do it. They were pushing the pace of play. They were throwing a lot of deep discs, and we saw a lot of great blocks because of it. We didn't see a lot of catches.
Yeah. Some throws popping up, a lot of turnover hucks, but also some good quality stretches of play from both teams.
Certainly good stretches of quality, but both D-lines got involved. We saw breaks on both sides of the disc, and neither team really able to put together that decisive quarter and stake themselves to a lead they might be able to protect.
Looked good early for the Breeze as they opened up a 3-0 lead, but the Rush hanging around. And, it's worth noting, you look at the schedule for each of these two teams coming up after this game, and DC has to feel pretty good about where they stand. They play away at Montreal, away at Ottawa, home against Philadelphia, and then away at Philadelphia. Those are all games that DC will be favored to win. On the other hand,
although
Toronto,
I do remind you that the at Montreal and the at Ottawa game are away games on the same weekend. And when the Breeze went on that road trip last year in 2016, they dropped them both.
There you go. It's not a freebie, that's for sure. We'll talk about the Toronto's upcoming schedule after this point. It is.
And an unforced turnover, number 19. That's McKnight drops the disc. He's not known for ever dropping or giving throwaways like that, so very uncharacteristic.
A good chance for an early strike from the Breeze. And a whistle, and it's going to be a timeout by the Breeze. They used their first timeout of this first half, so they will get their offense back on the field, a chance to get back in front by 2. Now, back quickly to this Toronto schedule. They are home, but they're playing in the Cross Coast Challenge against the San Francisco Flamethrowers, perhaps the team that's the favorite to win a championship. Maybe not at this point in the year, but certainly before the season. They and Dallas were seen as the top 2 teams.
I think that's
that
right.
will not be an easy game, even though San Francisco has to go all the way across the continent to play Toronto. I think that will be a tough challenge for Toronto. Then they play home against Montreal. They're away at Ottawa, and then they finish their season with a game against New York. And that's a game that New York may need to win in order to get into the playoffs, considering where they stand right now. They've dropped some bad games, and New York, a team that a lot of people thought could win the division, is now on the outside looking in the playoff race.
Yeah,
but you can see the difference in challenge between those two 4-game schedules coming up for each of these teams. DC has to feel pretty good about where they stand.
I think so. I will be interested to see how that New York game shakes out, particularly because you say it may be a must-win for New York. It also may be a game they mail in because they're so far out.
That's true. And it's very possible that Toronto could see that game as a must-win as well if they have a chance to maybe get the number 1 overall seed.
That's right. Prevent them from having to make a third trip to Washington, D.C. in 2017.
Flick up the line, dangerous and knocked away by the rush. So both teams having a little bit of struggles coming out of the timeout.
And that's Breton Tan who scooted up the line, made a great defensive play on Alan Kolick. Accelerated and made it count. Lloyd Blake laying out, getting it back for D.C.
Yeah, poor pass by Toronto, and it made it possible for Blake to lay out and make the block.
There's Joe Freund.
Back to Blake, and Blake turns it over. And a diving catch on the far side, and now a whistle as we may have an injury. It looks like Jarrett Marin tweaked his ankle or his calf, and he will head off the field.
He is an important defensive player for the Rush today. Hopefully this is only temporary. He can rehydrate, get some stretches in, and be back out on the field. Otherwise, Toronto will be without a big piece. So after all the mess and a timeout, Toronto now resetting a chance to hold serve on this point that started out on the offense for them.
And another bad throw from Toronto. Ojo trying to adjust, falls down. Breeze with it again. Kolick. Inside pass goes high, and it's knocked away. Nice defense from Mike McKenzie, who's been playing very well for the Rush this season.
Yeah, McKenzie kind of had the grab bag of stats last night, whereas certain guys had great assists or goal numbers. He had them all, including 2 blocks.
Inside throw to Tan. Harris. Taken away. Freund gets the block for DC.
Yeah, this is turning into a slog of a point, and the 20-year-old Freund is making his impact felt as he's on both sides of the disc, playing really well right now.
Almost
and an under out of Freund.
One of the best conditioned players out there as he was preparing for college nationals and playing more ultimate than just about everybody else on the field.
That's right.
Played a lot of points for his Virginia Tech team. Dangerous pass on the sideline, but it is completed. Blake to the end zone.
And that may be the first inverted pass that I've seen Blake throw all season, and it's right on the money. Hits Wodach in the chest, doesn't hang at all. There's no chance for the defense to get underneath it. Yeah, you'd think if he's got that in his arsenal, it'd get thrown more frequently.
Well, there's nothing but space over on that side, as we'll see on the replay.
I can't say it even uses the space, though. This is right to his man.
Just nobody playing defense on Wodach. He just hung out and waited for his teammate to cut away, pull off the one defender down in the end zone, and catches the hammer.
Yeah, so that was a 3-minute point to start off the quarter, and Toronto had their moments to make it fall in the favor of the Rush. Unable to do so, the Breeze net one.
So a break for the Breeze to begin the quarter. Armitage dumps it back to McKnight. McKnight strike cut. Now up ahead to Burrell.
Armitage, the real worker here. 3 consecutive undercuts from him before it's from the backfield.
Connor Armstrong swings to Mazzucchelli, who gets it back to McKnight. And McKnight gets it ahead to Burrell, who lays out to save possession.
Textbook layout out of Burrell.
Big swing. Mazzucchelli into the end zone for the Rush score.
Oh, for the Toronto Rush.
And pretty textbook offense there. A lot of work, though, from the Rush, especially the handler core. Had to make a lot of cuts to get that score, but they do manage it. About a 1-minute possession.
Yeah, it was interesting on the Rush offense there. Kind of everyone took their 20-second turn of you've got to be the guy now. You're ISO'd for 20 seconds. And the final 20 seconds, it was all the Burrell show. The big layout on the far sideline, and then recrossing the 50 feet width of the field to catch the score on the near sideline. So keeping it within 1. Now 6-5, still in favor of the home team, the Breeze.
Soaring pull from Toronto. Bends back down and lands just in front of the end zone. DC works it to the far sideline and into the hands of Monroe. This throw goes high, a big pile up, and it's knocked away. And now we get a late whistle.
But that's that same look width-wise across the field that's caused a lot of headaches in this early game as another one soars high. The intended recipient has no play on it. A lot of conversation on the field, but I think this is going to be a Toronto disc.
It doesn't seem that there's too much wind, but it may be gusting just enough down on the field to be causing some problems, especially with those forehands back across the field.
Yeah, that's right. It's really only in one direction, one very specific type of throw, and otherwise you wouldn't even know there's wind.
Rush with a chance to tie it up. Mike Jones.
It's the kind of wind that can lull you to sleep.
McKenzie. Again, Jones.
Nice inside break out of Jones.
Tatulea, little dish. 5 yards out. A whistle.
Injury timeout.
And it's an injury timeout. And
I
looks
think
like
we're going to
Mike
see
McKenzie going to head off the field.
I think we're going to see quite a few more of these today as Rush are again on the back of that 2-day road trip, and the conditions down in the field are conducive to wanting some water and cramping up frequently.
So it'll be Zlatic to put the disc back into play. And an inside flick, no travel call, and a turnover. It was good effort there from Armstrong. He laid out, but he couldn't haul it all the way in.
Jones was still celebrating his first great inside look, tried for another. This one a little bit too far out in front of Armstrong.
Nathan Pryor.
Oh, and Nathan
Doesn't see
Pryor
the
throws his
coach.
first turnover of the year. 142 consecutive passes without a turnover, and he gets one there.
And an unfortunate one as he threw a pass where the defender was coming from the weak side, never saw him. But another turnover for the Rush, and they have just been very inconsistent with the disc on their D-line, just giving the disc back multiple times.
And we've got another 3-minute point on our hands here. Kolick finds Monroe on the inside and an under.
Back to Kolick. And as it comes to Cranston, a whistle is blown.
A pick downfield, it looks like.
10-yard penalty against the Breeze. Breeze working hard. Now a big backhand goes up from Joe Freund. It's hanging, and it's caught. Not quite into the end zone, but a perfect throw there from Freund to Monroe. And Monroe to the end zone for Jonathan Neely, and the DC score.
Yeah, Jonathan Neely worked his way around the thrower, worked his way around Tyler Monroe, finished it off with a nice spin move, throwing off his defender and completing the pass for a goal.
See Monroe here, fakes there and goes to the backhand. Easy score.
Yeah, you could see that textbook cut from Neely there. He forced his defender to turn their hips towards the center of the field while he backdoored him. Ran a route that was unguardable.
Just over 5 minutes to go here in the second quarter. Breeze maintaining that 2-point lead. Again, getting out to an early 3-0 start.
And Armitage back to receive for the rush. Here's Kelly, and he looked upfield before the disc got there, dropping it. Another unforced turnover out of the rush. It's Marcus Thal with the disc. Bartenstein over the top.
And it's caught for the score. DC gets the quick break after Kelly drops it on the look away. And that's just a couple of unforced mistakes from Toronto. And you know, it's easy to chalk that up to fatigue, but these have been mental errors more than physical ones in the first part of this game.
I think that's absolutely right. Really nice to see out of Moldenhauer there as he was queuing up to receive that over the top pass. He really has to charge the disc while there's a defender coming onto him, and he secures it with a kind of sliding in as you would in baseball. Makes a really nice grab on what could have been batted away if he would have stayed stationary.
That makes it 8-5 DC.
Castine has lost the red hat, but continues to pull for the Breeze, and he puts this one within 5 yards of the rush end zone. It's Kelly with the disc. He's got to go get his confidence back after that last one. Be good to see a big play out of him, keep him involved in this game. He's a big part of this rush team that's down in DC today.
Disc out to the sideline for the rush. Double team from DC.
And speaking of guys that I've said are big parts of the rush today, we do see Marin back in the game now. He had left on that injury play, injury timeout 5 or so points ago, but he's back on this point.
Jackie Howe to McKnight. Howe looking for McKnight, not there, so instead he goes to the backhand and gains some yards, finding Tatulea. Now all the way to Harris. Howe dumps it back to Jones. And a whistle as a foul called on the mark, so Jones will walk it up 10 yards.
Moldenhauer moved his feet there, but moved his feet well, but still was a little too close to the disc that it hit Jones while Jones was still in motion.
Dangerous pass and a great takeaway. Bloodgood has been all over the place on defense for DC, and he gets another block there. And he initially looks like he gets hand blocked, but good spirit there. The integrity rule invoked by Breton Tan as he acknowledges that he hit Bloodgood. That's the second time we've seen that in this game. Player saying that they hit the mark, but Bloodgood ends up turning it over anyway as he throws a swing pass with a miscommunication and with a reset.
Bloodgood is having fits with that outside in break pass he's been throwing. He threw one just the other week in the final minutes of the New York game that really cost the Breeze, and another turnover there was not really close to any of his own players.
McKnight finds Howe. And a good catch by McKnight as he had to work to catch up to that. And again, the rush laying out to save possession. Just a lot of energy being expended on these offensive points. And just good defense by the Breeze, not making for any easy stuff upfield. Break backhand, now 5 yards out. Howe goes to the end zone, and they get the score as Tatulea hauls it in.
Yeah, easy to see that the Rush were working heavily throughout that point. Big layouts in the backfield, retaining possession. But also the Breeze defense really working. That probably exhausted both those lines. Bloodgood beaten in the backfield, beaten up line. Still staying within a foot or two of his defenders. But, really having to work to stay up and make those plays more competitive.
Yeah, just a good final move there by Tatulea to get the score. Toronto, again, hanging around, even though they've looked like the team that's had to work a lot harder for good things to happen. And, this game, we always knew these matchups between Toronto and DC were going to be important, but even more so now in an East Division that has become surprisingly competitive. You've got the Philadelphia Phoenix getting wins over Montreal, and then last week against DC.
That's right.
Shocking win.
They led one in exactly one time all game, and it's as the clock expired.
It seems like a bit of a mental breakdown from the Breeze to lose that game.
It was complacency, if I had to say anything after watching it.
Monroe.
Wow.
Drops a dime for Max Castle.
Real nice pass by Max Castle. Yeah, it was watching the Phoenix game, it was 20 points of offense, 10 by either side, without a break. And the Breeze were up that entire time by 2, 3 points, 2, 3 points. I think really easy for the defensive unit from the Breeze to get lulled into a rhythm. Hey, we're up by 2 or 3. We don't really need to press the pedal to the floor on this. And then the O-line gets broken twice, and all of a sudden, all those breaks that they didn't earn come back to haunt them.
Right. Look again at this throw from Tyler Monroe. Just absolutely perfect inside flick. One of the best hucks we've seen today.
Yeah. Kept a straight course as long as it needed to, and then as it trailed directly into its target. A real nice piece of throwing.
Under 2 minutes to go here in the first half.
And to finish your thought about the AUDL East, though, is the Royale in the thick of the hunt. I think they're sitting at 5-4 right now. 6-4, in fact. And another real contender for that third playoff spot. Particularly meaningful to them because if they go to those final three and would somebody by some chance emerge, they would be playing home games for the ADL final, which is in Montreal this year.
McKnight gets loose deep, and Cam Harris finds him. And a nice quick score there for Toronto. That's something that they want to have more of in the second half.
Yeah, if they're going to preserve legs, that's really important in more ways than one.
Don't forget, fans, if the DC Breeze win today,
so 9-7. Take a look here. Cam Harris just sniping one up the line to McKnight. Not somebody that maybe get lulled to sleep in the backfield. He's just going to hang out back there the whole game.
And a minute 23 on the clock. You see the Rush going to be on defense to start this one off. And it's Pryor in the backfield receiving the huck.
Goes up to Neely, gaining some quick yardage. And a blown coverage downfield.
A blown zone look.
Hanging huck, and it's brought down by Freund. And that's just another unforced error by Toronto.
This has been more popular in the AUDL and certainly in the Eastern Division this year. It's kind of this 2-3-2 look. 2 people in the deep space, 3 people, 3 defenders across the middle, and then only 2 in the backfield, even as there's been 3 handlers. You can see that structure for the Rush here, but with only 2 men deep, they send a third or send someone down that near sideline like Freund did in that case, and he finds an easy score. That's what you can't let happen in those zone looks. Someone gets in your area, you've got to pick them up immediately and act like it was man, even though you were only holding space to start with. And that was a quick score out of the Breeze offensive unit after a couple slogs, a couple 3-minute points. Now we've seen a pair of 20-second ones as these legs get conserved going into the middle part of the game.
Hey, come on down. Let's give this man a round of applause. Come on, Eric.
Big pull lands on the goal line. The Rush will have about a minute.
And Breeze are also replicating that kind of zone look. I don't know if it's the Heat or great minds think alike, but these two squads are looking like they're running very similar patterns on defense as well as offense.
Maybe trying to slow things down and keep the Rush out of the end zone. But the Rush working through it nicely as Armstrong now puts one up. And nobody is down there but McDonald. He lays out, not that he needed to, but making sure that the Rush would not have a chance. And it looks like DC will take their second and final timeout of the first half as they put their best offensive weapons on the field with 34 seconds to go in this first half.
Yeah, what Rowan McDonald would tell you there, as much as he's the paramount team player and a guy that puts the team first, is he still jokes around and says you got to get a hand on it to get the block.
That's right.
And
if
so,
you want to go on the official score sheet, better touch it.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's a throwaway.
And that looked like exactly what he was trying to do there. He was in position to make a play. He's going to stick a hand on it and try to get his 14th, 15th block of the year.
So you look at the standings right now in the East. Toronto 7-2, Breeze 6-3. Then you've got Montreal Royale at 6-4, so a half game back of DC. And then a big drop off to the New York Empire at 2-5. The Ottawa Outlaws 2-5, and the Philadelphia Phoenix 2-7. Now, 2-5 for the Empire, I think, is clearly the big surprise at this point in the season. The thing is, their point differential is still better than the 6-4 Montreal Royale. New York manhandled Montreal earlier this year, but then lost to them just a couple weeks ago, and that really put them in a tough spot for the rest of the season. Now, they've played 3 fewer games than Montreal, but they have a lot of games on the road coming up for the back half of their season.
That's right.
So it's going to be difficult for them to get back in front of Montreal. They're certainly going to have to beat Montreal in their final meeting if they want to make the playoffs. And I think it's out of the question at this point that they can do more than just get in as the 3 seed.
Yeah, I mean, chasing those wins is really tough. I mean, that 6 number is just so many wins. It's almost half the games in the season.
20 seconds to go here. The Breeze looking to get one last score before the end of the first half. Kolick.
They're running out of time, though, still deep within their own zone. Here's Pryor now with the disc. 8 seconds on the clock.
They're going to have to huck soon. Neely gained some yardage. They do have a cutter. Jump ball goes up. Buzzer goes off. If they catch it, it's a score, but they will not, although it was closer than I think a lot of people expected, as Rowan McDonald almost got a hand on it. But that brings us to halftime with
that
DC
one,
up 10-7.
That one won't show up in the scorebook. He got a hand on it as if he was going for the block, but he needed a catch on that monster hook that Blake put up. I did not think it was going to hang nearly that long. I didn't think it was going to make it all the way to the end zone. It did both those things, gave Rowan McDonald a chance. Breeze are still up by 3, but it would have been nice to pad those stats going into halftime.
Indeed, it's a 10-7 lead for the DC Breeze over the Toronto Rush here at halftime from Hotchkiss Stadium and Gallaudet University. We'll be back with the second half about 10 minutes from now. Enjoy the halftime show, everybody.
Piece with Eric is amazing to me. It's right in line with what we think is critical for kids, and that is to know their bodies.
The kids have really gotten into having speakers here that aren't just their teachers.
And I think the clinicians did a fantastic job. All the kids were engaged. None of them were distracted. They seemed to get into it right away.
I just want to reach out to Eric and tell him, thank you for coming and sharing the message that our kids can speak up. Early recognition is critical, and I look forward to doing more things with Eric in the future.
It's been great for us as a staff and for our students to experience the message you guys have, and highly recommend it for any school that has the opportunity.
Bush with an interesting hammer. Chicago defenders have made the play. There's a great leaping stop. Vaughn on the layout for the defensive play. Woods quickly on the attack. Vaughn into the end zone for the score.
Vaughn, my goodness.
In front, here's Donovan with the deep cut. Bansfield cutting from that handler position down the field, lights out, he's got the score! You gotta be kidding. That's the speed that Eric Leonard, the coach of the Indy Alley Cats, said he was afraid of. Off the disc, they center it. Kyle Cox chasing after this one, looks like it was intercepted in the end zone, and the Detroit Mechanics get on the scoreboard first on the Callahan, and that's how to make the early mark.
Egan with a good play. Working it up the field. Going deep, but too deep for Clutter. Trying for the greatest. Oh my God. Fantastic play by CJ into the end zone. Back up for the score. Wildfire just pulled one out of. They pulled the rabbit out of the hat.
Walking it. Aaron Mitchell. He's got Michael Fioramonte. Jock Polk. Oh! Goodness!
80 yards downfield for the break. Bennett to Frood. Inbound, what a catch by Frood.
As if Madison needed one more reason to miss Jay Frood.
How am I going to invent a throw? Maybe you're just throwing with a friend and something crazy happens accidentally, and then you kind of explore that. There's an idea phase, there's an exploration phase, there's a tinkering phase, and then there's a final product. So I'm sitting in the subway cart, throwing a disc up and down, and it comes to me. I got a new throw, just there. And I started like clapping, and the disc would shoot out of my hand. So, day one of the new throw, forgive me if it's not great yet, but let's see what it looks like. Unnamed, untitled. Okay. If there's any fans out there that think that they have something new, then I would love to see it. I don't believe it right now, but if you can show me a new throw, I would love to see it. I would love it.
Johnson looking deep, but resets to Pavel at midfield. Pavel with the hammer over the top. Rummelhart there for the score.
Uber!
What an amazing catch by Alex Rummelhart.
That is not something that is easy. Catching a regular throw like that, let alone a disc that is just falling so fast and upside down. The ability to snatch that just says everything about who Alex Rummelhart is as a player.
Yeah, I loved that you guys talk about cancer awareness, and it's more about body awareness and knowing their own bodies.
And I think Eric is a wonderful way to bring this into school. You come with a complete program.
The information is good. It's presented in a very professional way. The instructors do an excellent job.
I think the kids overall had a great time. I can see from their responses that they want us to get some more ultimate discs in the school, and that we'll be playing all the way into the spring and summer.
We really appreciated you coming out. We love the message you guys send.
Yeah, thank you for coming out.
Thank you, Eric, for coming out to the Pittsburgh area. It's a great experience for our kids.
Thank you for sharing your message with the kids. We really appreciate the energy that you've brought, and I really encourage anybody else who might be interested in this program to bring them on in.
Welcome back to Gallaudet University at Hotchkiss Stadium here. It's a 10-7 halftime lead for the DC Breeze. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, joined by Greg Esser. Greg, an interesting first half. I think we saw some of the signs of struggles that we might have expected from Toronto in the second game of a back-to-back in this heat, but they weren't the kinds of physical mistakes that you might expect. Rather, we saw mental errors. We saw the blown coverage in the zone. We saw some drops that we're very unaccustomed to seeing from some of their top players.
Yeah.
Does that define the first half for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly a big part of it. You can think of 2 or 3 of those moments, and then you look up at the scoreboard, and there's a 2 or 3 point differential. Both teams have had some great plays, throwing together passes, maybe a couple boneheaded plays or like mental lapses. But the Rush have certainly had more of them. And when you look at those just raw numbers, 2 or 3 kind of silly ones, and then 2 or 3 point differential, that's what I chalk it up to.
Yeah, it was a solid first half from the Breeze, although I'm sure they wish they had a bit of a bigger lead after jumping out to a 3-0 start and having a chance to go up 4-0 and really looking like they were ready to maybe blow the game open early in the first quarter. But the Rush stabilized their offense. They did eventually get a break back. Breeze broke again. And then the Rush had some chances on their D-line, and they have just been so inefficient. And not just those drops, but also just throwaways and little mistakes. They've probably had 4 or 5 opportunities to get breaks that they have just not cashed in.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, and actually when I think about kind of like those mental lapses, it makes me think a lot of times of like some of the most pedigreed coaches in the country, certainly like Dutchie, the coach of the DC Breeze for 3 years. When they run a tryout, a lot of times they'll try to tire you out. They'll say, do a full field sprint, and then let's play the point. They try to get you thinking about all those little things you need to do to execute when you're most tired, when you're overheating, when you're on the hottest day of the summer. And I think those are all the things you're seeing truly elite players demonstrate here today, and maybe even some lapses, even with these truly elite players.
By the way, it's a 3-point lead for the DC Breeze. handling the conditions just a bit better than the Toronto Rush so far. 10-7 the score here at halftime. We'll be back in just a moment for the start of the second half.
So this piece with Eric is amazing to me. It's right in line with what we think is critical for kids, and that is to know their bodies.
The kids have really gotten into having speakers here that aren't just their teachers.
And I think the clinicians did a fantastic job. All the kids were engaged, none of them were distracted. They seemed to get into it right away.
I just want to reach out to Eric and tell him, thank you for coming and sharing the message that our kids can speak up. Early recognition is critical, and I look forward to doing more things with Eric in the future.
It's been great for us as a staff and for our students to experience the message you guys have, and highly recommend it for any school that has the opportunity.
We're getting set for the start of the second half here at Hotchkiss Stadium at the historic Gallaudet University, where the DC Breeze have a 10-7 halftime lead over the Toronto Rush. Big game for both teams. DC a chance to get back to the top of the division, tied with the Toronto Rush. We're sitting at 7-2. The DC Breeze at 6-3. If the Breeze do happen to lose here today, that will drop them 2 games behind Toronto, and that will put the Rush in a great position to take the number 1 spot in the playoffs. And as we have seen for 4 straight years now, the Rush heading in, it would be the favorites at least to head to the championship weekend for their 5th straight year. Look at this Rush team. In 2013, their first year in the league, they won the championship. In 2014, they made it back to the final where they lost to the very talented San Jose Spiders team.
That would eventually win it all.
They would go on. They would win it in that game. And then in 2015, they lost to the Spiders in the semifinals. Spiders again go on to win the championship that year.
That's right.
And last year, again, they lose in semis, this time to the Dallas Roughnecks, who, of course, would go on to win the championship.
So a 3-year tradition of losing to the champions.
Yes. So the Rush, though, have been the team in the East. Perhaps this year will change that, as the Breeze in a good position right now to get into pole position to take that number 1 seed and get the home playoff game.
That's right.
Presumably for that Eastern Conference final.
Yeah, I mean, it really is all about that home field advantage. If you didn't tune in earlier, one of the things I was talking about is what the Breeze's record has looked like on the home versus at home versus on the road. When they are on the road, they are 1-3 on the year, but in the confines of Gallaudet, they are 5-0 on the year. So not only would it make it 6-0 if they win today, but they would almost guarantee themselves, unless something amazing or very unexpected happens, 1 playoff game here and potentially 2 before having to travel to Montreal, or whoever wins the division travels to Montreal for the finals weekend.
DC Breeze will get things started on offense. Alan Kolick catches the centering pass and bounces it right back to Lloyd Blake. Kolick now at midfield.
And Kolick's playing time has been conserved early in this game, but I do expect him to get ridden harder and harder down the line here, and that could spell trouble for Toronto.
Kolick notably absent in last week's loss to the Phoenix.
That's right.
Breeze on the road, holding a lead all game and then losing it in the final moments. Neely looking deep. And a nice catch. Not quite a layout, but a great grab from Tyler Monroe. And the DC Breeze take their biggest lead of the game, 11-7.
Yeah, what an amazing throw by Jonathan Neely. Really, pulled off when he started looking deep, he pulled off an extra defender, and he hesitated just a moment, but still knew that he could get it in there. You can see it right now. He throws this blading outside forehand that comes back right as Tyler Monroe's cut's moving into it, and Tyler Monroe laying out to get that second hand on the disc, securing it, netting the point. 4 points in favor of the Breeze now, the lead. Yeah, but real remarkable throw, especially beating that second defender that peeled off.
Markham Schaffner readies the pull for the Breeze. 360 pull. And it's a good one.
The Rush now, their first offensive possession of the second half. Armitage, the man that's very active, making those unders happen, making this offense work in a lot of ways.
Jeff Lindquist. Cam Harris. Harris steps around and throws a flick as a whistle is blown.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a pick called against DC, so 10-yard penalty against the Breeze.
Shouldn't be a pick call against the defense, though, right?
That was what the official score said, but that makes no sense. Of course, it must have been against the Rush. Thompson McKnight finds Connor Armstrong. Working in the backfield. McKnight and Armstrong. Now they connect with the cutters. Lindquist. And his pass looking for Massac Kelly too far out in front, and the Breeze will have a chance to extend the lead.
Cranston took off downfield immediately, but no Breeze player picked up the disc, couldn't find him. And then looks like some contact on the far sideline. Cantone releases the disc but draws a foul. He's going to get it back and get 10 yards.
And once again, we see the players essentially self-officiating those calls at the mark, as Massac Kelly put his hand up saying that he got Cantone.
Those are hard ones to see.
And it's worth thinking about at the league level whether it makes sense to ask players to self-officiate those calls, as we see a huck go up and a nice layout catch from Delrico Johnson. Backhand up the line. Johnson.
Nah, that's almost a scary moment there on that layout as Cantone and Delrico Johnson got low for the disc. Rico a little bit more avid. He grabbed the disc before Cantone fully ran into him. Yeah, but scary there. They both contacted the ground, but not each other.
Cantone gets the goal. DC now up by 5. 9 minutes to go here in the third quarter. And I just come back to this point. I'm not sure that it's possible, but I think it is worth considering whether they can implement elements of self-officiation into the AUDL.
Yeah.
Because, as we've seen in this game, referees have basically had no ability to officiate fouls on the mark. Because it's almost impossible to see unless you're right standing there 5 yards from the thrower, and they're generally not. So, do you ask players to perhaps make those calls themselves, or does that introduce problems potentially into the refereed version of the game?
Yeah, those are interesting thoughts, and I don't really have an answer for you, but it is worth considering. In their own end zone right now, danger zone for the Rush.
McKnight working with Jones and Marin.
Only 2 defenders in the backfield for the Breeze, again throwing that 2-3-2 zone look. Marcus Thal, one of those defenders.
Jones out to the far side. McKnight getting a lot of touches. Oh, and a great block underneath.
Wow, what a play by Moldenhauer. Really had to wrap around his defender without drawing any extra contact. He does so, and he gets the assist because he finds Castine in the end zone.
And that's a great sequence for DC, and they come storming out of the gates here in the second half, and now they have a 6-point lead.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're right. They're storming out here in this half, but this is the same way the game started, right? With a 3-point lead by the Breeze. So wonder if Rush didn't lose their momentum a little bit, kind of going into the second half. We saw them retreat from the sideline, try to find some shade, and once again, it's on the second day of a long road trip.
Yeah, just tough. I mean, and there's been a little bit of disappointment, I would say, from the coaching staff of Toronto and from the team that they were scheduled twice to play the Breeze on the second day of a back-to-back. So both of their long road trips ended in D.C. on Sunday. And, of course, they got blown out here the first time they played on that second game of back-to-back early in the season. And now they're down 6 here. Certainly the schedule doing them no favors, especially on a weekend when they're missing a lot of starters for World Games.
That is true, and not to be taken slightly as well is, hey, there's the factor that they're in D.C. on the second day of these 2-game road trips, but also the entirety of the Breeze season only has one 2-day road trip up in Canada. So schedulers, again, doing no favors to Toronto. They both have those tough matchups with the Cross Coast Challenge, but Rush then have 2-day road trips down in the Mid-Atlantic region.
Lindquist to McKnight. Goes around to Boychuk. McKnight to Massac Kelly, who floats it into the end zone for the score.
Yeah, the wind played with that one a little bit. Might have given a defender an opportunity to catch up to it. Defender had peeled off. So easy score for the Rush. And believe it or not, that's the Rush's first point of the second half.
Yeah, they've had a slow start. Isaiah Massakelli, as we see him here, catch the under and then almost throw away the assist, but he gets it in there. He's really been one of the Rush's best players and one of the most exciting. He's not really, I wouldn't call him a young prospect anymore. I mean,
no,
he's an
28-year-old
established player at this point, but still getting better every season. I don't think we've seen his peak game yet, and he's going to be an important piece of this team and the Toronto Ultimate scene for years to come.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It is worth saying on Massac Kelly, he does have quite a few drops this year, and we saw one earlier today, kind of that looking upfield prior to catching it. It's his 6th of the year, actually, which is very high in this league. But other than that, his game is very complete, and I think you're right, getting better every year.
A shot up the line, and it drops in at the back of the end zone. Great throw, and DC back up by 6.
Max Castle usually really at home in the end zone. Hasn't been there a lot today, but you see him getting back to that form. Beautiful piece of running, really earned a lot of separation, and it was easy to tuck that disc in the back line.
Just that lefty flick, smooth and out to space.
We got a winner, ladies and gentlemen. We got a winner.
And the Rush gave up that 3-0 run to start the first half. Never could quite get back to even. Now they've given up another 3-0 run to start the second half. And now the hill is that much higher to climb. What's it going to take for them to get it done? There's plenty of time left. There's no doubt about that. But what do they need to do in order to get this 6-point deficit down to something more manageable?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, there's been a lot of that zone defense, which burns time off the clock and maybe get some bad decisions out of your opponent. But I would say it's generally not working right now for the Rush. You know, they've got to convert this offensive point and then maybe think of a new defense to employ, shake things up a little bit, or go back to hard man, put the best players out there on the end of a long, tiring game and weekend, and they've got to earn back these points. And I don't think the zone's going to make it happen.
Steve Armitage goes up the line, finds McKnight. McKnight looking to the end zone, and he's got Jeffrey Wu for another quick Toronto hold.
Real nice piece of throwing there by McKnight. Catches the disc under and then beats his mark to throw right up the line. Not a lot of space, but places exactly where it needs to be caught by the expectant Wu. And here you'll see it again. Up that line, first 5 yards of the end zone. Yeah, real nice piece of throwing to wrap around his defender there with that arm action.
It's a beautiful, if quite hot day here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. Drove through downtown on my way here, and it's a beautiful city. If you get a chance, if you've never been to Washington, D.C., you got to make a trip. So much to do and see here.
Yeah, and a good day to be down on the mall, a good day to be maybe out on the Potomac. The hot turf, maybe not your top place to be unless you get to see a matchup of the 1 and 2 in the East like we get today.
Freund finds Kolick with a tricky inside flick. Now Wodach.
Here's Pryor.
He floats it back to Wodach. And that pass zipped in there. Good hands from Monroe. Kolick. High backhand, and it's caught by Pryor. And another good point from the DC offense. They've been untouchable so far in the second half.
Tatalia gives really no separation on Pryor at all. Kolick still offers up the disc. And you can see here the foot race to that floaty Kolick disc. Here he's putting it up and almost gets it, does Tatalia. But lands in the breadbasket for Pryor and just enough touch on it by Kolick to make that happen.
That's a very high-level throw. You see it and you think, okay, you just threw a high backhand. But it's more than that. He had to get it with the right distance, which can be hard from that angle, to get it to kind of go out in front and then drop back in on the receiver.
Yeah.
Without allowing the defender to make a play.
It has to be high enough to beat the first defender and horizontal enough to beat the second defender.
Alan Kolick, unquestionably one of the best players in the AUDL.
And a real nice hanging pull out of DC, one of the better ones we've seen today. Lets the defense get down there and set up. Still running that 3-2-3.
McKnight.
Or should I say, this is looking a little bit more man-to-man, player-to-player than earlier.
Cam Harris looking deep. And another overthrown huck from the rush. They've had the cutters there, and the execution has just been off all game.
Yeah, and that's what you really hope you don't see out of the rush, is if they start kind of losing their focus, if they start pressing a little bit, pressing deep shots that shouldn't go up, as both teams did in the early game, I think they're going to quickly revert back to some non-conversions and giving DC opportunities that they otherwise shouldn't.
Markham Schaffner brings it to the line. Bloodgood. Chuck Cantone holding.
In the danger zone a little bit here by the rush, or by the breeze. Schaffner deep within his own end zone. Finds Bloodgood on the near sideline. And Bloodgood can't find an upfield target until he finds Schaffner streaking up line.
Good strike cut from Schaffner, who takes some contact as he throws it, but doesn't get the call. And he looks back at the referee, and the late whistle. And some frustration from Ben Burrell, as that whistle came well after the incompletion.
There was a lot of contact there, but
I
agree. It seemed to be thrower initiated in some ways.
I think it was a foul, though. I think that the defender was moving as that contact occurred, but I just don't understand why the foul call happened so late. Maybe waiting to see if it was completed. Something you sometimes see from referees in the NBA.
And Bloodgood lets one fly.
Puts up
Rico
a hanger.
the target. Armitage in the area.
And Rico almost had it and gets knocked away. I think he was maybe looking for a strip call, but he's not going to get it.
Cam Harris makes the great run on play. Armitage really got beat by not reading the disc very well, but Cam Harris out of nowhere makes sure it still hits the ground.
Chuck Cantone gets a great block on the under. So he just hustles to the disc. Johnson. Inside flick. Now floated. 4 players pile up. It's tipped, and it's caught on the second effort. Brian Marshall hauls it in.
The calm, cool savvy of a veteran as Bloodgood, a little bit more fire goes up early. B. Marsh, Brian Marshall stands there, 2 or 3 touches, and it lands right squarely in the hands of Brian Marshall. Here you can see it again, floating, the disc is, and look what I found, Brian Marshall.
A remarkable tip as the disc came off the fingertips of the other Breeze player down in that end zone. And Marshall was there to easily make the catch. And that feels a bit like the straw that could break the camel's back with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter and the Rush now facing a 7-point deficit. And
certainly a camel would fare well out here on this hot day, but I think you're absolutely right. A tough one for Toronto to stomach after what was really a good defensive effort. Getting 2 men in the vicinity of Rico and forcing a turnover there. And then once again, by no means were Bloodgood or Marshall open in that end zone, and they still find a way to make the catch.
Excellent pull using that downwind, and it rolls out the back. That means that the Rush will have to start on the back line. And a dangerous pass nearly turned over. But good job by Tatulia to make the catch. Now he gets it back. It's bobbled, but caught. The Rush offense has struggled all game. Only 9 goals through over 30 minutes of play.
Yeah, that might be a franchise low, really. We'll see what this final tally looks like.
And remember, they scored 38 points last night against the Phoenix. And the Phoenix defense certainly not as good as the Breeze defense. But still, it's been a tough game for the offense from this Toronto team.
Earning every yard right now.
High stall, and now a pick call sends them back basically to the goal line.
It was kind of almost just a matter of time till you saw a pick call out of that. Look how tight and compact the players are just in that little corner of the field. There's a huge field out there, and they might be using a fifth of it.
Tatulia's swing pass misses the target. The Breeze now right on the goal line, and it should be easy buckets. And it's a pass, and it's not easy buckets, but it's still buckets. Great layout catch. And Marcus Thaw gets the goal.
On the goal, number 66, Marcus Thaw.
And here you can see the play again. A real nice setup there to put Rowan McDonald in a throwing position, and as Marcus Thrall streaking away from him, tons of space. Rowan uses it all, maybe to Thrall's chagrin, as he has to lay out big to make the catch.
And that's just another play going the Breeze's way. And the Rush have to feel a little bit snake-bitten after that one.
Yeah, I don't know. That wasn't really clean offense out of the Rush either, and maybe it goes back to that.
Certainly not.
Maybe it goes back to that previous play. Took the wind out of their sails a little bit. But yeah,
just the little mistakes. They let the pull go out of bounds. Got to start at the back of the end zone. They have almost no connection between their handlers and their cutters. They haven't really had that all game. Credit to the Breeze defense for really taking that away.
Yeah, this is one of the most effective I've seen, that 3-2-3 all year. Sometimes I like it just to mix up the looks, but today it's been the primary look and very effective.
Under 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. It's an 8-point lead, largest of the game for DC, as they have dominated in this third quarter. And the domination continues as McKnight's pass.
Could have been deep by one of 2 players on the Breeze.
It's all Breeze players in the area. I'm not sure what he saw.
There's Bloodgood and Shields now working the disc together. Bloodgood. Opts for Cantone. To Johnson. And here's Schaffner.
Johnson looking, gets it into the hands of Schaffner, who's waiting, and now backhand into the end zone for Johnson. And the DC Breeze are pouring it on here at home, up 18-9 on Toronto. Now they've doubled them up.
Second goal of the game. Assist, number 90, Marco. Here we go, we just scored!
See it again. Schaffner steps, waits, and floats the backhand in there, and the Rush defense just can't do anything about it.
Yeah, so now doubling up the Rush are the Breeze, and the Rush in a lot of trouble. I mean, there's a quarter left, so that's still plenty of time, but at some point, even 9 looks unscalable.
Well,
something dramatic needs to happen, and it needs to happen now.
You know, I don't know off the top of my head what the largest fourth quarter comeback is in AUDL history, but I doubt it's larger than 9. I mean, the Toronto Rush would have to basically score the rest of the way and not allow the Breeze to score any more points. It's not impossible, obviously, but the way that the Breeze offense has looked so far in this game, I think it's a tall ask. Changing things up are the Rush, putting Mike Jones as that center handler now.
Yeah, coming over from a game largely played on the D-line. And they're finding plenty of passes in the backfield, but running off time is the enemy.
And this sagging Breeze defense working great against the Rush. Zlatic. Jason Hune drops it off for Lindquist. Comes all the way around to Tan.
$10
10 seconds to go here in the quarter. Rush looking to the end zone, and they will put it in as Breton Tan gets into the end zone. And a nice job by Toronto to get the score before the end of the third quarter. Now just 5 seconds on the clock.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about that. They got the score ultimately. As clock and time management gets even better, maybe you don't want to give them any time at all. Make sure that final throw is done as time expires. They don't even get a chance to huck it into the end zone, because that's what the Breeze are going to attempt right now. You know, they have a chance to get that one right back in the form of a big fly.
And the wind is blowing in the direction that the Breeze will be going on offense, so certainly they will have the ability to throw it to the end zone. And so the Rush planning out their defense here.
And kind of some more D-line players on the line for the Breeze here, wondering what the intent is, as it will be just 5 seconds of offense.
Big pull from the Rush.
4, 3, 2,
time ticking down. This throw floats too high, and that's probably going to run it out of time. So that brings us to the end of the third quarter, and it's an 18-10 lead for the DC Breeze.
That floaty pass by Bloodgood doesn't allow for good clock management. Schaffner, he wanted to throw it full field, but it didn't come down quick enough. Wasn't able to find the handle, pull the trigger.
We're going to take a quick break with the DC Breeze leading 18-10. You're watching AUDL Extra.
So this piece with Eric is amazing to me. It's right in line with what we think is critical for kids, and that is to know their bodies.
The kids have really gotten into having speakers here that aren't just their teachers.
And I think the clinicians did a fantastic job. All the kids were engaged, none of them were distracted. They seemed to get into it right away.
I just want to reach out to Eric and tell him, thank you for coming and sharing the message that our kids can speak up. Early recognition is critical, and I look forward to doing more things with Eric in the future.
It's been great for us as a staff and for our students to experience the message you guys have, and highly recommend it for any school that has the opportunity.
Welcome back to Hotchkiss Stadium at Gallaudet University, where the DC Breeze, the home team, have an 18-10 lead over the visitors, Toronto Rush. We are getting ready for the now 1K toss. So the first disc, he hits it. He's got 30 seconds now to try to hit the mannequin from 50 yards. Again, last week, the first time ever, the mannequin was hit for a $5,000 score. There's the first throw, just misses to the left. Here's his final opportunity, and that pass a little too low. It's going to come up short, but nice try for the contestant.
Yeah, that's some exciting stuff down there, the promo by the DC Breeze. And then last week we saw all the excitement when the 5K was handed out. Still $1,000 on the prize on the line now for the rest of the year. So we'll have two more chances, two more home games in DC. Today, unfortunately, no luck. The DC Breeze will keep their $1,000.
They'll keep their money this week.
Keep your money.
So here we are, 18-10 DC Breeze. They outscored the Toronto 8-3 in the third quarter. And what happened there?
Yeah.
The Rush were in this game, and then now all of a sudden it looks out of reach.
How dramatically the complexion has changed. Now we're saying they're hanging around. Will they make the big move? Will they make the big move? They're only down 2-3 points. But now, looking up at that scoreboard down by 8 points, hard to think that move's ever coming. And you saw a DC offense really crack down. You saw a lot of tight spaces the Rush were throwing into. We looked in the early game. They're throwing lots of deep passes. And we said, hey, are these really needed? Maybe they are to stretch the field, because when they're not throwing the deep passes, that DC defense really locked down.
Yeah, we saw them really put the clamps on towards the end of that third quarter, and the Rush only able to really throw swing passes and a lot of turnovers. Although the D-line, or at least a combination line, came in at the end of the quarter there and got a nice hold. We'll see if they stick with that or if they go back to their traditional offensive unit.
Yeah, you wonder if it's all hands on deck. Almost for both these teams, you saw defensive players for the Breeze playing offense at the end of the quarter. You saw a real synthesis hybrid line out of the Rush. At this point in the day, it's who's not cramping, who's feeling the best. Get out there and then try to make something happen.
So it's
got to work with all your teammates in the end.
Yep, it's an 8-point deficit for this Toronto Rush team. They're really going to have to probably score the rest of the way. At most, I think they can allow the Breeze to score one goal. And, we saw the Breeze scored 8 points in that last quarter. That's what the Rush are going to need to do, assuming the Breeze score no points at all. So It's going to be a long road back, but it starts here with an offensive point.
I'd also already want to look through the annals of the AUDL history for a time that the Rush have scored so few. If they don't score 5 here, I think they'll set a new record.
Yeah, it's been a tough day for the Rush.
And not a good record, not the kind of record you really want to set.
Rush will check it in on the sideline. And again, we see the zone look from the Breeze. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I mean, this is even a more traditional zone almost. They had 3 people in the backfield for the first time all day.
Jeff
the
Wu
cup.
Dumps it back to McKnight. McKnight loops one, looking for Cam Harris, and he's got him 5 yards outside the end zone, and he throws it into the end zone finds Wu, and Toronto gets a hold to start the quarter. That's exactly what they needed to do. Back within 7.
Yeah, scoring quick, certainly that's the way to do it. Found their deep threat unguarded with a little window on the far sideline, made it count. And here we see it again. That zone look offers just a little bit of space on the sideline, and it's a nice touch finesse play. Number 8, Jeffrey Wu, catching it with a layout, making sure to avoid the range of Delrico Johnson. But here's the trickier one. If it's something to score quickly in 35 seconds, but to get a block and score in a similar amount of time, which is what the Rush are shooting for in this point in the game, they've got their work cut out for them.
The DC Breeze offense may not have had a turnover in that third quarter. They were very sharp.
That's absolutely right.
This pull goes out of bounds.
Lands gently behind the tents that are shading the players and keeping them as cool as possible on this 95-degree day. And it's Lloyd Blake with the disc in the center.
Blake steps and throws the reset. And with only one defender in the back, they'll get some yards out of it. Nice play by Pryor.
Neely now. Upfield to Kolick.
Let's go, Breeze!
Kolick finds Blake. Swings around.
Changing angles very effectively. Here's Max Castle.
Now back with Neely. Pryor. Backhand force from the Rush. Blake. Patient. Gets it to Castle. Castle looking to the end zone. And he's got Alan Kolick, and DC super efficient as they work in their first score here in the first quarter.
Yeah, kind of almost I want to say a challenging or even a dangerous cut out of Alan Kolick there. Not in a great way, but his teammates know it's coming. You can see they played together before. As Kolick sweeps in front of the stack making that cut, drawing a defender with him, his other teammates stay out of the way. And that's really important there to making sure more defenders don't come off or someone poaches the lane. Great play by Kolick, but almost a better play by his teammates to preserve the space for him.
Papa John's Pizza. Besides serving pizza at every home game and sponsored halftime event, provides 50% off.
And so you can see Toronto trying some different things on defense, but not really able to get much going. And the Breeze looking very steady. And again, it's worth noting, the Breeze with essentially their entire roster on hand today, and the Rush missing 6 starters, 6 key players.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right missing the starters. The one addition that the Breeze will get back when it's playoff time is Matt Kerrigan, one of the captains of the Breeze, who's actually been out with a shoulder injury that he sustained up in Toronto the last time these two teams matched up. And he said he'd be about 6 weeks on the disabled list, unable to play. We're about halfway into that time right now. I expect if these two teams meet in the playoffs, Kerrigan will be back in the mix.
Now what's he going to add to the team when he rejoins the roster?
Yeah, so he's, yet another guy that's kind of cutting downfield out of the stack as the initiation role. He'll throw assists, he'll throw goals. He's an offensive line and minded guy. And you see the Rush scoring there.
A nice cut by Cam Harris to the front cone as they get into the end zone.
Cam Harris strikes again.
I just picked out the winning ticket.
Yeah, but Kerrigan, it's maybe repetition, skills that other players on the Breeze offer, but when you have 3 or 4 guys, the Monroes, the Max Castles, the Matt Kerrigans, the Jeff Wodatches, that all offer this skill, where do you put your best defender anymore? When one player subs off, you've got another player filling in that role equally well. It's a dangerous thing.
There's another look at the Rush offensive score. Nice job working it around the horn and into the end zone at the front cone. So 3 quick scores, 10 minutes to go here in the fourth. It's go time for the Rush. They need breaks and they need them in a hurry.
Pryor again fielding the huck. Neely in the backfield with him. Monroe on the near sideline. 1, 2, 3.
Monroe looking deep, And he's got Joe Freund right on the goal line.
Right on the money to Joe Freund. Beautiful pass.
Back to Kolick. Kolick to the end zone for the score.
Wodach with the goal. Yeah, it was really all about that Monroe pinpoint huck. Not a lot of separation for Freund there, but he didn't need a lot. He hit him right on that shoulder as he turned around, and here you can see it again. As Freund streaks up, and here we've got Freund already with the disc. Give a handoff to Kolick, and Wodach sees it coming a mile away, already making that cut for Kolick and getting a goal.
And that score might put this one out of reach for Toronto.
Yeah, you had said they only need one in your mind to they could only afford to give the Breeze one in your mind, and now they've got two. It's looking kind of dire.
I mean, crazier things have happened, but
crazier things have happened.
It would have to be a drop of the pull, a first throw turnover from the Breeze, if they really wanted to let the Rush back into this one. If they continue to play the kind of offense we've seen from them in this game, there's just not enough time left on the clock for the Rush to really do damage. But their offense has been good to start this fourth quarter. See if they can add on. Again, lots of zone from the Breeze today.
And just such a better field spread out of Toronto now. You can see why they're being more effective with their offense, but it's too little too late. But in the past, yeah, they got jammed up in that back corner, and now they're spreading the full field as 24. But taken away. I thought it was a given, but Rowan McDonald runs onto it and snacks it away.
Great D by McDonald.
Got complacent there a little bit. Rowan McDonald, the hustle play.
Just an excellent defender. Now the Breeze looking to add one on and seal the game. Castine makes Massac Kelly jump. Then he zips one in there to Cantone, and he can't hang on.
In and out of his hands. Yeah, there was a little heat on it, but with two hands there, you got to think it's not one that Cantone misses very often.
Armitage, far sideline for the Rush. Comes around to McKnight. Nearly blocked with a poach, but now they punish the poach by finding Harris. 3 yards out, and he goes inside flick into the end zone for the score. But that was a long point. Down to 8 minutes to go here in the fourth quarter.
Okay, we're going to still win this game. I got Carter and I got my man Dylan. I'm trying to get you guys hyped. Let's go. I got 2 more discs.
Here it is again.
It's Mario Zlatic that ultimately nets that point for the Rush.
And if the Breeze do go on to win this game, again, they will move to a tie for first place with the Rush.
But, of course, have the two important differentiators, which are the tiebreaker by winning 2 of 3 in the regular season versus Toronto, as well as the point differential in their favor. And, yeah, that's actually a feature the Rush should be considering right now. Not lose this game by 7, but even losing it by 4 or 5 will
keep the point differential in their favor.
Under control, right.
So these final points have some meaning. A little bump on the mark there from McKnight, and the late whistle gives a 10-yard penalty to the Breeze.
Blake walks it up 10 yards. Fakes big immediately as Monroe goes for him, but it's Castle underneath.
Blake has just been wide open all game. High backhand. This time it doesn't work. Nice defense on the other side. Breton Tan breaks up the pass to Kolick.
Yeah, real nice play out of Breton Tan. We've seen that play attempted several times, kind of the floating backhand, makes it over the mark, but then slides into its intended recipient. But Breton Tan makes up the ground, makes up a step or two, and gets a block.
McKnight, who's played feels like nearly every point of this game.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I mean, they have definitely been riding McKnight.
Toronto takes a timeout. That's their first timeout of the second half. So they are not giving up. They are going to go for it as they take the timeout and look to put their
definitely not. And if I'm the coach in charge of this huddle, I think that's got to be it, right? We're talking about point differential here. We're talking about overall standings in the East. It makes a big difference if they can bring it within 5 here, because then on the weekend they'll still be net positive in terms of the points gained. Beating Philly by 8 yesterday and then only losing by 5 here today would help them in the standings, even if it doesn't help them win-loss-wise.
See the Toronto offense talking it out.
The Breeze recoup on the sideline and send out a defensive line. You see Shields, you see Bloodgood, you see Marshall, Johnson, Cantone, Cranston, and Schaffner take the field.
7 minutes, 4 seconds to go in the game.
LayoutUltimate.com for more information. Layout Ultimate gloves, the ultimate grip for your game.
Toronto retaking their positions. They will start with it on the corner, the front corner of the end zone. They've got 80 yards to go.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the rest of the schedules for these two teams, but the one that's really we're on the precipice is for that 2-game road trip for the Breeze next weekend. Only one they'll have to play this year in the regular season in terms of a 2-game away road trip, and they're both up in Canada against the Royale and the Outlaws. Wow, and an overthrow a little bit. Bloodgood gets a block, 4th of the day.
Bloodgood's been very productive on defense. The Rush lose their chance, and now an inside backhand pretty throw seals the score for the Breeze.
Marshall is the recipient of Bloodgood's pass, but yeah, an all-around good point for Bloodgood. Gets a block, gets an assist. And here we see it again.
Little double team, pass out of it, and then a little flip inside backhand, nice throw.
Yeah, the defense really concerned about taking around that around look, which Bloodgood uses so often, but he settles for the inside, and maybe that's even a more effective way, as we did see him make that one around throwaway earlier in the day.
Breeze, D-line. Looking to continue to slow down this Rush attack. Holding on to an 8-point lead. 360 pull again from Schaffner. Jones. Out to the sideline for Harris.
Whoa! And a huge block on the mark by Brian Marshall. That is going to be a top 10 play. Laying out as the big Huck is queued up, and you can see him shaking it off there. He might have lost feeling in a finger on a block that big.
I think you'll take that without a problem as it comes around to Marshall on the near side. Dumped off to Schaffner. Marshall again. Dangerous pass, but a great catch by Bloodgood.
Secures it with that second hand very nicely.
Great game he's having. Big layout there. Marshall
stoked right now. Oh,
Johnson
takes a break in the stack this time.
Johnson's pass misses the mark.
Cranston lays out, tries to control it, unable to do so. Big Huck goes up. Bloodgood running on hot pursuit of Howe.
And Howe, good effort, but he was out the back. And hopefully did not hurt himself on that track material out the back of the end zone. Tried to keep his toes in bounds, but a good 2 or 3 feet out the back. And now we have a whistle, perhaps a timeout or a...
Timeout.
Indeed.
I'm impressed as much by that play out of Howe as his hustle right back on the field. Bloodgood after the big run and change in turf to get onto the track, the harder turf. almost expected seemingly an injury called, ready to take himself out of bounds or out of play. But Howe sprints right back on the field. Like, I'm impressed by that young man.
Yeah, he's a great young player for Toronto and someone to keep an eye on in the future. Let's take another look at this play by Marshall, getting the hand block on the mark. This goes to the sideline and just lays out to his left and gets the block. Great play.
And not only is that a point block, but a point block on a big huck throw. Hard to do and hard to even mentally commit to making contact with a disc moving at that speed.
One more time. See it again. Just great effort on the far side from Marshall.
Just a little bit over 5 minutes left of this contest. After the game, make sure you make your way on down to the track fence for a post-game high-five line. Players like that, everyone who
All right, you see, again, a kind of hybridized line a little bit. Maybe a more offensive focus than we've seen in previous ones. Certainly, Kolick, Wodach, Monroe, all more offensively minded players on this DC team. But that's, again, the virtues of a timeout. So you get to substitute that line, you get some fresh legs in there, or at least as fresh as they'll be deep into the fourth quarter of today's game.
Whistled back into play. And a first throw turnover. Both teams really not doing very well coming out of timeouts.
Timeouts and stationary disc to some degree, which is, what that was.
Massa Kelly.
Inside
flick.
Break, real nice. But
and McKenzie gets a hand on it but can't reel it in.
Bobbles in and out. Here's Monroe throwing, blocking out the sun. Wodach using his body. Going to be a play. But ripped out of the sky by
Massa Kelly. Marin. He's looking deep. Looking for McKenzie.
And a little too much.
Too much. And the crowd, even the DC crowd, wanted to see him lay out for it.
They did. A collective sigh of disappointment.
Kolick looking for a reset as the stall gets high. His pass up the line misses the intended receiver, Neely.
A little bit of a misread there by Neely. Neely went for it early without realizing that might be one he could run onto, honestly, and be in a power position and catch, seemingly easily, but committed to the sideline, committed to the first bid he had at it.
A injury taken by Jarrett Marin.
And the Breeze used the opportunity to get Rowan McDonald on the field as Max Castle subs out. Early in the season, it was and really the player that's still splitting time the most on both O and D line for the Breeze, Chuck Cantone, but Rowan McDonald making a run at that title.
And a nice throw. Massa Kelly tosses the Scuba into the end zone for Tatulia. And that's a score for Toronto.
The second goal of the game. They assist and the Scuba. Number 17, Isaiah.
Take another look. Massa Kelly. Nice throw out into space. And the Toronto offense has definitely struggled a bit in the game, but it's really been the defense that has done very little for them. This Breeze offense, a formidable unit, and has just dominated that matchup with the rush D-line today. And maybe that makes sense coming off the back-to-back for the rush.
Yeah, I think that's what we've seen, certainly. And it hasn't been for a lack of turnovers, some unforced, but yeah, really trouble starting the engines then, running the offense from that defensive line. Seen a lot of struggles in that capacity.
And the Rush had their chances when the Breeze offense was still finding its footing in the first half, especially in that first quarter. Rush couldn't do much with their opportunities, and the DC offense has been much better here in the second half, not giving the disc to Toronto very much. Here's a good chance, but they will take a timeout.
Great fakes by Schaffner there. Really got his mark to move around, opened up the deep space for himself, opened up the ability to throw the deep ball, but didn't have a cutter. So opts for the timeout.
DC takes the timeout.
And that's the last one they've got in this game.
They got a 7-point lead, under 4 minutes to go. They will take the win here, and they are going to tie the Rush up at 7-3.
So something fun that I like to do when I'm on the air doing blown coverage, which is when the Breeze covers our own game without Altiworld's assistant like we're happy to have today, is I like to name an MVP, Charlie.
All right.
So I'm wondering if you've got candidates with 3 minutes, with 4 minutes here to play, candidates for who might be a good MVP pick in today's contest.
All right. I'll give you, I'm not sure if I'm going to give you 2 or 3. I'm going to start here. David Bloodgood, MVP candidate number 1.
Yeah, certainly been a tenacious defender today, as well as throwing plenty of assists.
I think number 2, I would say Alan Kolick.
Alan Kolick's been the lubricant in the backfield that's made it work for the Breeze.
And if I have to pick one more, I actually really like the way that Lloyd Blake has played in this game. He's been a super steady handler, maybe not the obvious pick for MVP, and I doubt that you'll choose him, but I do think that he's had a good game.
No, I think I can work with those 3 choices, and I think there's reason to include Lloyd Blake in that list.
Look at Delrico Johnson run down the field. And what a catch! Delrico Johnson hauls it in for a punctuation mark on this game.
Draws the double coverage, but it makes no difference. A spike with emphasis.
You see Johnson there. Look at the wheels from Johnson in double coverage. And against good defense, still makes the catch.
Yeah, really the defense caught up quite a bit to Johnson, but nerves of steel. Gets 2 hands there, secures the disc.
So I'll let you think about it for one more point.
Okay.
Your MVP selection.
And then you're gonna lock me in?
Yep. So take your time.
Okay,
No
good.
rush.
No pun intended
And I
on
think,
the rush.
you know, if we're gonna, we should probably include someone from the Toronto side. I mean, they haven't had a great game, but I think I would probably put Isaiah Massey-Kelly in the mix as well.
He's had some big moments for sure. I think I want to give the MVP call to the winning team in today's game.
I think that makes sense. So
but
think
yeah,
about
but
it,
it is worth including some rush players. And the other one, I'd say Thompson McKnight has been. If Lloyd Blake's going to make the list for the Breeze, Thompson McKnight handling the disc as he does here frequently for the rush.
Comes back to McKnight. Disc with Burrell. He centers it up to Lindquist. And they go around to Armstrong. Lindquist operating out of that under position. And a nice throw into the end zone for the rush score.
Jeffrey Wu has had some late action here, scoring frequently in the second half, or at least as frequently as the rush have. Another nice one there out of Wu to gain separation near sideline. Defenders very well beaten. Easy goal.
I think I would have liked to see the rush coaching staff get some more players onto the field earlier in the game and really try to preserve legs. But they ran their offense pretty hard early in the game, and we saw them run out of steam a little bit in the third quarter, and that's when the Breeze really blew this game open.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they were between a rock and a hard place because they were going down points early as well. So you play your big guns when you are most nervous. And there's Wu again scoring.
Good speed.
Beating into space and
all right, so
making it look easy.
You've had some time.
I've had some time.
Are you prepared to make your decision?
I think I am. I think, and it's going to be his first one that he gets out of me this year in terms of an MVP designation. It's going to be David Bloodgood, the guy you led off the top with. I think that defensive pressure, he had one early throwaway and he rallied dramatically from it and has earned a lot of turnovers in his own right, as well as scoring with relative ease. I like what Bloodgood's done out here today for the Breeze.
Yeah, good two-way day for Bloodgood. I think he has 4 blocks.
His first year in the AUDL, but he has cut his teeth with some experience in Philly and the MLU, the now defunct league.
Kolek with a nasty strike cut, and he dishes it into the end zone for Jeff Wodach, and the DC score. 2.5 to go, 23-15. DC leads.
And the last thing I'll say about Bloodgood as well is harken back to his days at Lehigh University in eastern Pennsylvania, not too far from my hometown. We joke about Lehigh that they're built on such a steep side of the hill that they, even when they're not practicing, their ultimate team builds great calf muscles.
Take a look at this move from Alan Kolek when we see it here on the replay. He's in the lane, comes back out, and then just makes a boom juke move. Easy gets open and a quick dish. That is excellent work from Alan Kolek, who's so dangerous both downfield and in the backfield.
Yeah, having to work for 20 seconds continuously, but there are these moments, these half-second moments in that play where everything needs to go precisely and rapidly. On the pivot, on the turn, on the cut, it happens flawlessly, and receiving and releasing the disc all within a half second. Yeah, it's a 20-second play, but those half-second moments where Kolek really shines are second to none.
An offsides whistle goes against the breeze, so Toronto will start with a disc at midfield. And again, just to run through this, if you're wondering about the upcoming schedule, both of these teams have just 4 games remaining. They're both going to move to 7-3 at the conclusion of today's game. DC will play 3 away games, but against a pretty soft schedule. They're going away at Montreal, then at Ottawa, home against Philadelphia, and then at Philadelphia to close the season.
Of course, one of their 3 losses coming against those Philadelphia Phoenix, so
sure.
Those 2 contests shouldn't be overlooked.
And certainly, I mean, as the East teams have proven, no game is a gimme.
Yeah.
We've seen crazy upsets all year that you would never have expected, including Philadelphia over DC last week. But, I think with DC potentially needing to win those games against Philly and away at Philly in their final game of the season in order to maintain a top seed heading into the playoffs, I think they will send a fuller roster this time around.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, we need to, crack the whip as you would use on Capitol Hill, the whip majority member to get the extra players to come. But sometimes these players are just so overcommitted. You see it really affecting the rush here today. It's World Games. It's the Canadian World's team that's preventing these players from being here, not for any lack of desire on their own part.
Oh, absolutely. Kelly's getting the score there for Toronto as they get back within 7. And then Toronto's upcoming schedule, tough. They are home against the San Francisco Flamethrowers, who are coming to play them in the Cross Coast Challenge. Then they're home against Montreal, away at Ottawa, and then home against New York. So they have to play the number 3 team in the East, the dangerous number 4 team in the East in New York, and perhaps the most talented team out west in San Francisco. So not an easy schedule for Toronto coming up. That San Francisco game could determine their ability to stay competitive for the number 1 seed with DC.
Here's Neely with the disc. Looks up line to Kolek. Nice around pass. And Kolek cuts back in. Monroe on the end zone line. Finds Blake. Just short passes, nothing longer than 5 yards for the Breeze there. But all open looks, precise looks. Nets a score. Breeze up to 24 on the day. Toronto sitting at 16. And it really hasn't earned any more separation in this final quarter. The Breeze have rested on their laurels a little bit. They went into the quarter up by 8. It was maybe the challenge of Philadelphia last week that they rested on their laurels, but up by 8, you certainly can do so. As you see Lloyd Blake scoring there once again. Just a precise pass to his chest as he cuts toward the thrower.
So with this win today, that means that in this matchup between Toronto and DC, the home team has won 7 straight games in the matchup. As mentioned at the start of the broadcast, Toronto, the last team to win on the road in the series, they won in double overtime against DC here in the first game that they played last season. So lots of opportunities for both teams to get road wins. DC took Toronto to overtime up in Toronto last year in the Eastern Conference Final, but Toronto came out on top 23-21.
Yeah, I think
they will play another classic this year. Certainly these 2 teams are the favorites to meet again in the East Final.
Yeah, I think that double overtime last year in the playoffs is as indicative of how this matchup will go in the future. I wouldn't use today as a litmus test if these two teams match up in the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely not. Big shot. Good run. Layout, and what a catch. Isaiah Massett-Kelly with a beautiful play. And
there were 3 times I doubted his ability to get to that, and all my fears put to bed with a massive layout by Massett-Kelly.
I love the effort. Down 8 in the game, and he just goes all out to catch this one. It looks like he's got no chance. The disc just sits a little bit, and he reels it in. And a little field goal as well.
Why not add 3 points?
If only it worked that way. They could get right back in this game. Just over a minute to go here in this one. And this is going to bring Toronto's 6-game winning streak to an end. They've been on a real tear. And
their last loss was to these Breeze. Is that right? Maybe it was Montreal. Now I'm confusing my storyline.
I think they lost to the Royal at home. And
more recently than the Breeze. That's right.
More recently than they lost to the Breeze here in D.C.
It's been 6 wins since then, though. You're right.
And, they converted over 72% of their offensive points, averaging over 28 goals a game. And you look at the scoreline today, I don't know what their conversion percentage was on offense today, but it certainly wasn't 72%. And they're obviously nowhere near that 28-point-per-game mark. And that tells you a lot.
Wow, what a fake by Pryor. Opens up space for Castle in the end zone, and he finds him. Yeah, that was a really cool play out of the 25-year-old Pryor. He just drew his mark so viciously with the fake. Opens up the entire force space for any throw he wants, and he opts for a goal scorer. Here it is again. Looks around, defender bites on it, and a huge throw intended for Castle. Castle runs onto it. Beautiful catch, beautiful play.
So, both teams playing their 10th game of the season here today. New York Empire sitting at 2-5 and in 4th place in the East, have only played 7 games so far. So they've got some. They certainly have some work to do, but they also have some opportunities to catch up. Although they do have to go on the road for a lot of their remaining games.
Ottawa in a similar situation with 2 wins themselves, but only 7 games played.
McKnight.
So either one of those teams maybe. Oh, and Chuck Cantone sells out, but can't find a Frisbee, can't find plastic.
Reset to McKnight. 30 seconds on the clock. Lots of energy and effort from both of these teams down the stretch here, keeping it interesting for the fans. Just good intensity for a game that's outcome is not in doubt. And a nice poach block from the Breeze.
And Breeze gets possession of the disc here on a Rowan McDonald catch. There's 8 seconds to go.
And that is going to do it. They will not have to throw another pass. And McDonald will throw it into the stands. Will it get to the stands? Yes, just. And the horn sounds. And that will do it here in D.C. as the Breeze take down the Toronto Rush 25-17.
Rowan McDonald launches that final disc into the crowd. And, you're absolutely right to call it there. Time expires here at Gallaudet. A beautiful but hot day in D.C. sees the Breeze take the season series against the Rush 2-1.
So the home teams win every matchup. D.C. able to take advantage of Toronto coming in on back-to-back both times and get very solid wins both times. Final score here in D.C., it's the Breeze 25 and the Rush 17. Both teams move to 7-3, and we've got a playoff race in our hands in the East. Hope you enjoyed the broadcast today, everybody. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. For Greg Esser and our entire crew, I'm Charlie Eisenhood, signing off for AUDL Extra. We will see you in 2 weeks from Pittsburgh, where we will bring you the game between the Thunderbirds and the Alley Cats. 2 weeks from today, Sunday. Join us then. Thanks, everybody. See you then.